So just in case. Miss Charlotte, good morning. Since this is my profession, Julian, which is being in an academic institution, I don't work at Google or Tesla, so I don't really know how those corporations work. But this is very much like, a corporation. My experience in the past, maybe 30 years or so of being in this particular environment, you have someone who goes to school, like all of us, here, gets their bachelor's for various reasons, whether it's parental, whether it's social, whether they're inspired by an instructor, maybe they're just very ambitious. They continue with their education and they get their master's. Then again, for various reasons, they continue their education until they get their PhD. For whatever the reasons are, they feel inadequate, that a bachelor's is simply not enough, a master's is simply not enough. And in some sense, you could say that all of us in this class kind of fall into the Buddhist category of being a hungry ghost. For those of you who may not know what the concept means, is that you have, let's say, a tiny little animal that has a very big mouth, but a very, very small throat. And they have also a very, very big set of eyes. So when they look at things, they have intense desires. They want to have it. And they have a big mouth, which means that they can just put the whole thing in their mouth. The only problem with this particular animal is that because their throat is so small, they can't really just push everything down. If you put a slice of toast in your mouth for this particular animal, it's going to take you maybe a week or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or years or months for the slice of bread to go into your belly. And I suppose all of us in this class, because we can see things, smell things, taste things, we gravitate towards greed. We want more of the things that give us pleasure. Now, it doesn't mean that just because you have it, you know how to work with it. You know how to swallow it well without suffering from indigestion or diarrhea or bellyache. So, we're all born to be greedy, and we're all born to be ambitious in some shape or form. And so they have a choice. They can go to high school and teach, they can go to a 2-year college and teach, and they can go to a 4-year school and teach. Depending on how ambitious they are, where they got the degrees from, how many applications they've sent out, and how many rejection letters they've received. Some people applied, say, to Oakland public schools. Some people apply to Hedroy. Some people apply to Laney College. Some people apply to Cal, Berkeley. Some people apply to Stanford, Yale, Oxford. Okay? Now, you apply because you want to go into these environments and teach. And your desire to teach really has been untested. You don't really know how good of an instructor you're going to be, regardless of whether it's a 4-year school, 2-year school, high school. It's just a nice fantasy to have. It's like anything else in life. I'm going to this party, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to a class, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to buy a car and have a good time. So we're all driven by fantasies that have not been tested. So you go into the classroom and you have high expectations of yourself, of other people. And then after a few years, you come to realize you're really not good at what you do. You're just not a good instructor. No one knows why. I like to be like a Socrates. I'm just not the Socrates. I like to be a good instructor. I just am not. What can I do? Or you may be a great instructor, but you may come to realize that you just don't have very many good students. Or you may be a great instructor and you may have great students, but you've been in the business for about 20, 30 years and you're just tired now. And whatever the case may be, maybe you come to realize that you're really not good at your profession, or you just don't have good customers, or you're just burnt out. Something strange happens, because what you're doing really, you're just moving from one station of power to another. You wanted bachelor's, now you have that power, but now you find yourself in a position of poverty. Bachelor's is not enough. I'm poor. I want a master's. Then you get master's, that becomes a source of power, but all of a sudden poverty sets in. It's not sufficient. You get to the PhD. So at every stage in life, at every station, you suffer from both poverty as well as privilege, being rich. Then you say, instead of being in charge of maybe 5 classes, altogether maybe 200-300 students, I no longer really want to be in the classroom. I no longer really want to teach. Maybe I should become a dean. Now, deans, let's just say in the social sciences, you are one single human being in charge of maybe 10, 15 departments. You have philosophy, history, sociology, psychology, art, music. These are all under your belt. You have to govern all these departments, and let's just say every department has about, 5 instructors. So you're dealing with about 50, 60 instructors. You have power over them. And then let's just say every week you have about 10, 15, 20 students from this particular division going to the dean and complaining about this and that instructor. And that gives you more power as a dean, because then you say, now I can call the instructor to my office and tell them that, this is not the best way to treat students or talk to students or grade essays or whatever the case may be. And very much like a shark, what happens, you're just, swimming in the water, you're having a good time. All of a sudden you feel that there is a smell or taste of blood somewhere. And then you kind of just, like a dog, follow its scent, and then you get to the prey and devour it. And you like it, you want more of it. And once you get to this position of power, you become a dean. Now your salary has been doubled. People look at you differently. You don't talk to students. You rarely talk to instructors. You're basically with other deans. You're hanging out with vice presidents. You're hanging out with presidents. You're hanging out with college administrators across the state. And there comes a point where you say, well, I don't really care to be in the classroom. I don't really care for the students that much. I like to govern. I like the politics. And by the time you get to this place of power and position after like 5 or 6 or 10 years, you have completely forgotten what it means to be an instructor. And you have certainly forgotten what it means to be a student. So your own history becomes forgotten. Okay? The struggle that faculty go through, the struggle that students go through. Then after a while you say, well, I am a dean, and there is a position open for vice president. And when you become the vice president of instruction, you now have all the instructors on campus. You have power over all of them, relatively speaking. And then you have power over all the students. And you have a lot of money in your pocket. And then you decide which division or which department should get more classes, which department should get less classes, who should be hired, who should get fired, all that stuff. As you get more of this taste in your bloodstream, you say, well, after a few years of being a vice president, you say, well, why not just go for the president? So you start applying. It's all about politics now, keeping your language clean, being politically correct. If, say, I go to the vice president and say, listen, I only have like 5 classes this semester for the entire department. Can you give me more? Say, no, I'm sorry, we don't have the budget. See you around. Say, listen, weren't you like an instructor some 50 years ago? Don't you know what it means not to have money? What it means for your part-time faculty to be laid off? Yeah, I'm sorry, I understand all of that, but we just don't have the money. Empathy, compassion, sympathy, understanding, they all kind of go away, little by little. You're just in the business of managing things, not caring for things, managing things. Okay. And after you're completely kind of contaminated by ambition, there is nothing wrong with it. You say, well, I am making about 190,000 a year, maybe 200. Maybe I should just become the president. Why not? So you apply and you get some interviews and you get a job. Now you become the president. Now you have power over the entire Laney College, for example. Right? Once you get a taste of that and you're making some money and the district gives you some incentives for this and for that, say, well, why stay here? Why not become a vice chancellor or even a chancellor? Which means that if you become a chancellor at Peralta, you have Laney College, Alameda, Berkeley City College, and Merritt College. They will all bend over for you, obey you. I'm making it black and white. It's really not like that, but nevertheless. And your salary jumps from, as an instructor, you make about 50 or 60,000. You become a dean, you make 100,000. You become the VP, you make about 150, 200. You become the president, you make about 210, 215. You become the chancellor, you make about $350,000 a year. And your housing gets paid, your gas gets paid, they get you this, they get you that. And then you retire. You no longer care really for instructors, you don't really care for students. You just become profoundly vulturous. It's very, very political. And just in case someone asks you, well, why the hell do you want to be the president? Or why do you want to be a chancellor? Not one will say, I'm here for the salary. I'm here for the money. Everybody says, hello. Everybody says, I'm here to make a change. I'm here to make a difference. And when you tell them, education is a clogged up system. It's like the drain in your house. Nothing ever goes down. Nothing flushes down. Everything is clogged. You need to call Roto-Rooter. And they need to be at your place like 24/7. Say, oh, no. It's not like that. Things can change. And you say, well, education really belongs to Oakland. Whatever lives in Oakland comes to Laney College. If you want to change what's happening at Laney, change Oakland. So, oh, no, we can make changes. Everybody's very gung-ho about enrollment going up. I say, okay, so instead of having 10 students, you have 50 students. What are the qualities of these students? Can they read? Can they write? Can they think? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they depressed? Nobody cares. At the point I'm trying to make, even if you were to care, it's by the time you get to this position of power, you begin to lose so many things. I mean, look at us. You have power over your 5-year-old brother. You see things that he doesn't. He cries for things, and you look at his tears and you say, this is just ridiculous. That's just what power does to you. What you found to be important all of a sudden becomes not so important. It happens to all of us. We are all CEOs of something. The moment you move from being 10 to about being 25, you see things differently. So you look down on 10-year-olds who have pathetic desires. That's how it is. The only way you can really protect yourself is always to remember what it means to be broken. Always remember your past. That's one of the things that people like Malcolm X remembered, Angela Davis, Mahatma Gandhi. The moment you forget your past, you lose really a good amount of richness that used to live inside you. Yeah.
Why is that being affected by power? They have a lot of power, but they work for it. So there is that kind of
It depends what it is you want for yourself, for the most part, how you want to live your life, what you find to be valuable. If you, I had a dean, he lived in Roseville. He used to commute to Laney like once or twice a week. He tried for the VP position here at Laney. It wasn't given to him, it was given to someone else. And then he found a VP position that's about 5 hours away from his house in Roseville. And what he's doing is he goes there, stays for a week, or Monday through Thursday or Friday, comes back home, stays with his wife and his kids for a couple days, and then he goes back again. If that is a sort of life you see for yourself and you want for yourself, and granted also he's about 60, he's about to retire, he wants to make sure that he gets a good chunk of money once he's retired. Also, if you've been in a relationship after 20, 30, 40 years, your relationship with your wife and your relationship with your kids, it's not as connected as it used to be. You're very comfortable. In fact, you enjoy not seeing them as much. You have paid your dues. You've taken enough trash out. You've washed enough dishes. You've said yes, no, you bent over a few times, too many. And now you say, well, it's not a bad thing for me to go somewhere, be away from the family for. But the point I'm trying to make is ultimately, whatever it is you want for yourself, that is what you'll choose. And what you want for yourself depends on what you've been exposed. If you have come from an environment where you've been pushed around by your parents all the time and you don't really want to trust people, you will never choose to be with anyone who loves you too much, or you begin to develop some love for them, because it means that you have to be attached to them, you have to trust them, you have to have faith in them. And that's too much for you, so you walk away. So most of us really are what they've been exposed to. If you happen to be relatively decent, and there are some, as Ms. Charlotte would say, exceptions to the rule. I mean, when you read, say, the biography of Malcolm X, for example, I don't know if you've read the book, but if you haven't, you should, just for its literature, not so much for the message, which is really difficult to do. But for a kid who has been pushed around by history, by society, by politics, by culture, his vocabulary is immaculate. It's amazing the way he writes, the way he thinks, his interests. It really, really, really is amazing that how could someone who's been abused so much by so many different life's forces, how could he come out so clean and so pristine? There are people who come out like that despite your background, your history. Something about you remains uncontaminated. How it happens, it's beyond me. I don't really know. So you could be a CEO, and you could one day just wake up and say, I feel bad for the people who work for me. I just want to give free healthcare to everyone. I want to just up their salary by, a few thousand. You can find people like that. It's just very rare. So not everyone becomes contaminated or corrupted by power, but most do. And the other thing about human tendency to forget is it's actually in some ways a very, very good thing. Imagine if you were in a relationship for, 4 or 5 years and things didn't pan out well, and you loved, and he or she didn't love you as much, and now that they have left, you're just broken. If you did not have the ability to forget, you'd have a miserable rest of your life. So there is this defense mechanism that just lives inside us. For some things, forgetfulness is really, really bad. For other things, being able to forget is your Messiah. Jesus Christ reminds you. But your organism is wise enough to say, I don't need to be reminded as often about how miserable life is, about how hopeless life is. I want to be happy. And thank God my mind, my physical organism, deceives me into thinking and believing that bad things don't happen. And it saves you. And then after 4 years, relationship goes away, time gets in, you recover, you forget, you back into the dating scene. And all of a sudden, after many, many years, you realize that the things you never thought would happen to you, like falling in love, immensely in love, you're right there in its cradle, and you like it. And Are there moments where you're fearful? Absolutely. How long do they last? Not very long. They come and they go. Struggle. And then I know you want to talk after class, Will. If I was to ask you, Mr. Jameson, what 2 plus 2 is, coming up with an answer, is it a struggle? No. You would know that 2 plus 2 equals 4. If, on the other hand, I was to ask you what 2 plus 2 is when you were 4, and you had just been exposed to, say, math that day, would you struggle to find the answer? And the answer is yes. You know, we have no choice but to struggle in life, not because we are wicked, not because, as the Old or New Testament people say, we are born in sin, none of those things. We struggle because, first, we are very, very new to life. I don't know if I have lived this life before. I don't know if there is karma. I don't know if there is reincarnation. I don't really know if I was born in the Garden of Eden. I don't even know if I have the kingdom of God inside me. All I know is that whenever I confront anything that's new and fresh, something I've never been exposed to, it's like this puzzle with 1,000 pieces. And it's going to take me a long time to figure out what piece goes where. And I have no doubt I'm going to sometimes just sit there with a blank stare, you know. I'm going to look at this piece and say, what is this? I can't figure things out. Are you going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Are you going to suffer? And the thing is, because of the sort of animals that we are, you easily become attached to things. You're addicted to playing basketball every single day for 5-6 hours. You like it. It gives you pleasure. You like the way you feel after the game is over. You like going home and taking a nice cold or hot shower. You like sitting and eating food after a good day's exercise. They all make you feel good. And if someone was to ask you, what have you been doing for the past 2 years? And what they're asking you really is, what has your history been? You say, well, my history really has consisted of just playing basketball every single day for the past 2 years. And then when someone says, or maybe your body just gives, you have a bad knee or a back or a shoulder, they're all bad, not functioning well, you have to give up. And giving up is a struggle. Finding something that will inspire you is a struggle. Almost everything under the sun is a struggle for us. Getting old is a struggle. Being like our good friend, you know, raising a 7-year-old all by yourself, that's a struggle. So whenever you move into any new environment, because you're dealing with a good amount of unknown pieces, especially in this day and age where you have no support system, and even if you did have a support system, there's a good chance you wouldn't really listen to those people. You just want to do it on your own, your way. And you have no choice but to make mistakes. And you have to pay the consequences for having made those mistakes. That's just what life is. There is no way around it. There are no shortcuts. You know? Now, if you're asking, why do we have to struggle? I don't know. It's just the way we are. You know, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he said at the end of all human journey, really, what everyone in this class is looking for is happiness. You don't come to class because you like me. You come to class because you have certain hopes and dreams. This class is a stepping stone. And even if you were to say, you know, you come here because you like me, the truth is you like me because there is something about you that when you come to this class, you look at me, you hear my voice, my ideas, all of a sudden you feel good about yourself. Ultimately, it's about your happiness. And if someone was to ask you, well, why the hell do you want to be happy? The answer is, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to eat something that tastes bad. I want to eat something that tastes good. Now, if you're asking me, why do I want to eat something that tastes good? It's a stupid question. That's just the way I'm wired. I just like to be around things that make me happy and make me feel good. And I think in some ways, if you were to go back to the New Testament version, which is human beings are born in sin, it's very, very true, but not the way Christians or Jews interpret what sin is. You know, sin basically means missing the mark. Now, what mark are we missing? You come to this class to get an A. That's your goal. That's your purpose. You end up with a D. You've missed the mark. The mark is getting an A. You get into a relationship to get married, to have children. It doesn't happen. You've missed happiness. You know, you get on your bike to get to your job. You get into an accident. A car hits you. You've missed going to work. Paycheck, maybe loss of a job. Maybe you're paralyzed for life. And the point I'm trying to make is ultimately, whatever we touch in life, eventually you'll just get bored, which means that you have no choice but to always, always, always live in sin. You have happiness, but like sand, it just flows through your fingers and you just don't have anything after a while. There is a way out though. Now, this is the secret, Jameson. Pay close attention. There is only one way out. رو سر بنه به بالین تنها مرا رها کن ترک من خراب شبگرد مبتلا کن ماییم و موج سودا شب تا به روز تنها خواهی بیا ببخشا خواهی برو جفا کن ماییم و موج سودا شب تا به روز تنها I missed. Yeah. خواهی بیا ببخشا خواهی برو جفا. Some kid goes to his father and says, I see you struggling, suffering. Is there anything I can do for you? And the father says, you can't do anything for me, but life can. What is it? He says, son, I know you love me, you care for me. Go to your bedroom, go rest. The only way out of suffering is death. That's it. Eventually it'll come to an end. You just hope that you have a nice, easy death, which is you close your eyes and you just don't wake up. The tragedy is that 90%, 80, 85% of the human population, they have a miserable death. They get sick, they're on machines or tubes, cancer, whatever the case may be. It's a really, really tragic death, painful death. So that's the only way out of struggle. And just in case you don't believe me on that, you should read the Gospel of Judas. It's only maybe 10 pages, less, really. And his belief, whoever wrote this book, is that as long as you live in your body, you have no choice but to be pushed around by your own desires, your history, other people, culture. Your soul is always in a position of unrest because of just the way things are. And again, don't go to YouTube and listen to these new age teachers about power and discipline and all that stuff. I mean, they could be helpful, but they really have such a short shelf life. One of the most important figures right now in the Western culture is a man named Jordan Peterson. He used to teach psychology at University of Toronto, I think. He quit his job or retired. And you know, he's one of those new age teachers. He's slightly different than others, but nevertheless, he tells you what you need to do to make your life better. I don't think it's that easy. I think that the poison just lives in the Western culture. And just you going to your room, cleaning your room, and all that stuff is not going to do much for you. He has like this new episode, How to Have a Great Marriage. It's not going to work. You can't tell people how to have a good marriage. It won't work. If you have a 9-to-5 job that's draining your soul, if you have and by nature, life just sucks the soul out of you, man. Life is frustrating. You're going to go home angry and frustrated. You know, Jordan Peterson is on the stage 24/7. He has podcasts. He gets invited here and there. He rarely spends time with his wife. And if he does, she's over there somewhere in the bedroom or in the house, and he's over there talking to some people. That's a great marriage. His wife has come to accept his position, and he has come to accept her position. He probably is not going to say it this way, but he has power. He has a great amount of power that you and I will never have. So he can go on the stage and talk like a sage, but for the rest of us people, the point ultimately, Jameson, is you're going to suffer, man. The only thing you can do is try to lessen your suffering by thinking about things really, really well, reflecting on things really, really well, the way he does. When he was single, perhaps childless, he could have all sorts of people at his house. He could drink, he could smoke, he could watch all sorts of movies. But now that you have a child, that child forces you to think who you want to invite, how you want to speak, what movies you want to watch, where you want to go for entertainment. Because if he doesn't do any of that stuff, his kid is going to go to him when she's 15 and she's going to say, Dad, I'm pregnant. Or Dad, I did A, B, C, D. And now, not only does he have to deal with being 65, he also has to deal with the fact that he has a 15-year-old on his hand who's pregnant. Now he's got to take care of 3 people: himself, her, and the grandchild. That's just too much. So the way he thinks right now saves him a lot of trouble. And that is something you want to do by going to the library or maybe YouTube and listening to some philosophy that comes from the Stoic tradition. If you have no choice but to suffer, but choose your sufferings well. Relationships, you're always going to be miserable in them. But if you go out with a woman who's going to break down every minute, man, that's immeasurable suffering. If on the other hand, you're going to go out with a woman who breaks down once a week for maybe 1 hour, consider yourself to be very, very fortunate. Choose your suffering. You can only do that by thinking and reflecting well.